Hi everyone, welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by former Everton Burnley player, of course, former scout at Everton, former England player. Is there anything you haven't done? But of course, Martin Dobson, everybody, former Everton player in the 70s. Martin's got his new book out, Dobo for Club and Country, of course, and this Christmas it can be a great gift for someone. I can highly recommend it. I've had a read all the way through it. And I was hooked by chapter 2. So definitely give it a read. Martin, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.
Thanks for the invitation, mate. Really appreciate it.
So, of course, you had the idea to write this book when you found some old belongings in your house and you thought this would be really good for a book. And it was, it turns out to be some really good content. But why was it important for you to write the book, instead of keeping them to yourself and just showing them to friends and family? Why did you want to tell the public your story?
Well, as you say, Steve, it's my wife said about lockdown. First of all, go and clean the garage out, and there's a lot of stuff in there. Gone to charitable organisations and family and friends and stuff like that. A lot to go to the tip as well, but I came across these 2 or 3 big black boxes and memorabilia from my mum and dad. And I just sat down and started reading just programs or newspaper articles and stuff like that. And you're thinking, wow, just out of love and respect, get them down on the computer. And that's what I started to do. And that was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So I didn't get the garage cleaned out for quite a long time after that.
The pathway into football is very, very different to how it was when you were playing. Of course, you came into football the mid to late 1960s, around that time. And of course, in the first chapter of the book, you talk about your release from Bolton Wanderers and moving on to Burnley. You talk a little bit about things you might have done had football not worked out, but why did you choose to specifically pursue football? And also, was it scary? Because I know for a fact for me, if something I'd pursued up to the age of 19, it would have been a good time to pursue something else in case it didn't work out. So do you think that's just the sort of person you are, that you were able to just grab something with both hands and not give up on it?
Well, it was a big shock, so to be fair, because at that particular time I learned a lot about how football works. Because as I say, I got a free transfer from Bolton Wanderers in 1967, and I was sent a recorded delivery letter. Now you won't have heard of one of those. You've got to sign it, and then it makes sure it gets there. And it was really a release. Thank you very much, goodbye. Bill Reading was the manager then at Bolton Wanderers, and I learned a lesson. And I'm thinking, if I'm ever in that position, I'm releasing a player. Surely you get them in the office. You have a word with them, give them a bit of hope, and say, "Listen, son, it's not worked out here. I'll try and get you fixed up with a trial somewhere else." But there was nothing like that at all. So I learned, if I'm ever in that position as a manager or coach, I will do it completely different. So I'm sat there with my mum and dad. We lived in Rishton, little village between Burnley and Blackburn. And I was on the deck. I've got to say, 19 years of age on the deck, thought my career was over. And my dad could easily have said then, because he saw a lot of my games when I was playing for Lancashire schoolboys, England schoolboys, and he could easily have said, "Well, Martin, obviously you're not good enough. They're the professionals and know what they're talking about. Maybe it's best if you do something else." And if you'd have said that at that time, I'd have gone down a different path. But he said just the opposite. He said, "Martin, I think you deserve another chance, son. Why don't we get in touch with Burnley? They showed a bit of interest in you. When you sign for Bolton, let's get in touch with the manager and see if he can give us a bit of advice." And I'm thinking, Steve, straight away there, Bolton have released me. They're a second division club. Burnley, they're a first division club. Why would they want me? Because on the deck. And he gets on the phone, one of those trim phones. They make a funny noise, don't they? And he
You're
gets through.
speaking to the wrong person about old phones. I can barely work this one.
So yeah, he gets through to Harry Potts, manager, who at one time played for Everton, manager of Burnley Football Club, first division. And of course, you're thinking, well, could you get through to Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho now? Of course not. This is Harry. He could have been anywhere. He could have been on the golf course. He could have been anywhere. But he's speaking to Harry Potts, and my dad just said, Mr. Potts, you showed a bit of interest in my son Martin. He's been released from Bolton. Have you got any advice? And after a couple of minutes, my dad put the phone down and he said, Martin, you've got a 2-week trial at Burnley. And straight away, Stuart, I said, wow, this is a way back into the game. And immediately I put the tracksuit on and I just ran and ran and ran. I was in the park in Bristol. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't really matter. I knew I had to get fit for these 2 weeks. I got up every morning, 6 o'clock, similar kind of thing, because it was a chance of a lifetime. And when I went into Burnley, Harry Potts was manager, Jimmy Adamson was a coach. And straight away, I felt comfortable because it was all about control the ball, pass and move, control the ball, pass and move. And I could do that. It gave you confidence. Keep it simple. Don't complicate anything. So the trial period, well, I only had 2 weeks for a start. And then Harry said, there's a couple of games, Martin, we'd like to play in that. So that trial period was extended to another 2 weeks. We had 4 weeks altogether. And at the end of that, Steve, I went over to Jimmy Adamson, the coach, and I said, Jimmy, do you want me back on Monday? He said, of course I want you back, Martin. I said, well, the trial period finishes today. We're actually training on Turf Moor that day. And he said, Martin, go and see the manager. He's got a contract for you. Wow. I started running off in the wrong direction. I started running off where the corner flag was. I didn't know where the manager's office was. I was so excited. It was untrue. So I knocked on, finally found it, knocked on the manager's door, Harry Potts. He's got all these blue forms on the table. And I'm thinking, wow, give us a pen. He might change his mind if I don't get it. So he said, you've done well, Martin. Come on in. So I signed all the documents before I knew how much I was getting paid. And then he said, £20 a week, Martin, £5 appearance in the first team, and £4 winning bonus. I thought that was fantastic. I said, I won't let you down, Mr. Potts. And he said, I know you want some. And from now on in, you call me boss. And I came straight back and said, all right, Mr. Potts, I will do.
Fantastic. Do you know what? I love your attitude towards things, Martin, because that sounds something a lot like something I do. Just complete lack of patience, but when you want something, you just grab it, and it's absolutely fantastic. And we'll talk a bit about Turf Moor a bit later on as well. I want to talk about sort of try and go in chronological order a bit, but Nat Lofthouse, the late great Nat Lofthouse, one of the towering figures in English football. He's one that really a giant of the game.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your style of play didn't really fit in with Nat, and of course, that's completely fine. I know obviously a lot of players and coaches and managers don't get along. But what's the best piece of advice that he ever gave to you?
Looking back on it, not quite sure, to be honest, because he was an icon. An absolute legend at Bolton Wanderers. He was scored a couple of goals against Manchester United in the cup final, didn't he? And I think he got, was it 30 appearances, 30 goals for England. An absolute brilliant player. But he was just starting, Steve, his coaching career. I didn't realise it at the time. And I couldn't compare any coaching at all with anybody else. But there was one or two things I was questioning a little bit, in that we usually played on Burnham Park on a Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock, when the first team were playing away from home. And before then, on the Friday, the training session was a couple of laps around the pitch, a few sprints, and then go and have a hot bath. I'm thinking, surely to goodness, there's got to be something about technical things, about the game itself, about free kicks, corners, whatever. But there wasn't anything. So even I was questioning that, and I'd not been in the game very long, as a professional. But it didn't work out. And not blaming anybody, because sometimes you look back and it might be the worst situation that you find yourself in, but actually it's the best, because I was released and then go to somewhere where it's like a flower opening, isn't it? Everything is completely different on a different level completely. So I don't blame anybody, because it just didn't work for me at that time.
Yeah, and of course, a brilliant story that as well, of course. And you've not just, you've been you rubbed shoulders with some of the absolute best. And one of the great players that you did play with was Keith Newton, who joined you at Burnley, didn't he? In the
Yes, it is.
1970s. What was it like to play with him? Because he'd just come from playing for England in the Mexico World Cup, who we're the world champions. So you were playing with, on paper, one of the best players in the world. What was it like him coming in? Of course, it was a bit maybe towards the end of his career, but you were still a young a young up and comer, really. And maybe not an up and comer, but you were you hadn't quite hit the heights that you had with Everton yet. What was that like having him coming in?
It was absolutely brilliant because he was on a free transfer and he came in that season 72, 73. I was captain of the club. Keith came in at left back, and his influence and his experience was so vital to us that season because on that side as well, maybe you didn't know, but it was first of all Dave Thomas. He only played a few games that season, and then he went to Queen's Park Rangers for a big fee, second division, who were a threat to us in the second division at that time. But then Leighton James came in at 17 or 18 years of age, and what a prospect he was. He played the rest of the season. So the influence of Keith as an experienced international player and a young Leighton James who was of outstanding individual ability. It was a terrific combination at that time. So Jimmy Adamson, of course, he was the manager then, brought Keith in, and he was like the missing link to get everything going in the right direction. He was a super player, but his advice to everybody, great in the dressing room as well, had a bit of fun as well with the rest of the players. So he was terrific.
And of course, I mean, I'm going to make you blush a bit here, Martin, but you were a fantastic player yourself, and you also played with some fantastic players, and I'm going to name a few, and I just wanted you to tell me a little bit about what they were like. So Mick Lyons, of course, is really an Everton giant.
Yeah, he was. I knew straight away when Mick was just obviously a little bit younger when I came to the club in '74, but he just loved the club. He was on the terraces at I think it was the Beale end at that time. Was it? It was all right? No. The Gladys Street, yeah, Gladys Street. Yeah. And so he was an Everton follower as a young kid, and then to come into the side as a young player, and then be captain of Everton Football Club. We're all delighted for Lyonsy then because he just gave heart and soul to the club, 100% commitment, and we just wanted him to be successful, which of course he was. Terrific player and a great guy.
Yeah, and then of course there's the big one. Probably doesn't get the credit he deserves at Everton because we never really. It wasn't in terms of trophies, a very successful team, but Bob Latchford, of course, one of the, probably up there just behind Dixie as one of the greatest goal scorers in Everton's history. What was he like?
He was superb, Latchy. Yeah, you can always rely on him scoring goals. I mean, that season that he scored 30 goals, the last game of the season, he needed 2 against Chelsea. And we all were rooting for Latchy, but everybody else was scoring goals that day apart from Latch. This is great. I got the first, and it was a header from a corner, and then Robbo scored, and who else was there? Oh, right, he scored. So we're 3-0 up, and Latchy hadn't scored. He gets a 4th. We're delighted about, and then the funny thing was the 5th, Mickey Lyons. He scored, I think, from a set piece, a right wing corner, and he gets in front of Latch. And the crowd reaction was, even though Lyons had scored, made it 5, they're all a bit, he's got in front of Latch, and the crowd are on his back a little bit. Anyway, we get a penalty, and obviously Latch is going to take it. And I remember him saying, because he wasn't great on set pieces with Latch, he liked the ball moving all the time. And he said, Dobo, what do I do? I said, well, first of all, Latch, you score, and that would help. And I said, if you're in any trouble, just get your head down and smack it. Make sure you don't hit it over the bar, because sometimes you're trying to hit it a bit too much and it balloons everywhere. But he whipped it right in the bottom corner. It was a wonderful penalty. It should have been taken all his life. So we're all delighted for him. But I remember one occasion when I scored a hat trick against Wimbledon in the League Cup, and I didn't get the match ball. I didn't get the match ball because Latchford scored 5. We won 8-0. And at the end of the game, I'll never forget it. Latchford gets the ball, sticks it under his shirt. He's off the pitch, and I go over to the referee, and I'm like a big kid. I'm saying, "Where's my ball? You know, I scored that ball." And this guy, referee, says, "Only one ball, Martin. Only one ball." I'm thinking, this is Wimbledon. Every time they came to Everton, they kick about half a dozen balls over the Gladys Street end, you know. And it's so anyway, the grandkids came round several years ago. 2 of them, they were aged about 6 and 8 then, and they were playing in the garden, and they must have known that I scored a hat trick. And they said, Grandad, where's the ball?" And I said, "Oh, I think it's in the garage. I'll dig it out next time you come, lads." What did I have to do? I had to go and buy one. I bought one from a sports shop. Me and the missus signed a few autographs. Next time they come round, they said, "Hey," they're right excited. They said, "Hey, Grandad, you've kept this ball in good condition after 40 years, haven't you?" I have actually told them now they're all about 30 odd years of age. So that was the only one, but I missed out on the ball, yeah.
Well, that's a shame because you know, do you know what? Do you think they would have at least got you another one? I mean, nowadays there's too many. There's the amount of times there's more than one on the pitch is just absolutely staggering. Billy Bingan, the man who really brought you to Everton. There's a good bit in the book about him as well. What was he like?
Well, it different. See, I've come from Burnley, and it was all about keeping possession, control the ball, pass and move, don't complicate, get it wide, as I've already said. We always played with wingers at that time, get crosses in and go and support them, and get back as quickly as possible when you lose possession. Now, I thought it'd be exactly the same at Everton. It wasn't. It was more direct, you know, from the back. I tended to, you know, try and come pick it up from the back 4, but then it would be launched a little bit forward. And so I had to get used to that. We had a good season, that first season, because of the fitness levels as well. Up and down the pitch, we're a really strong side physically. And we almost won the championship, if you remember, 74, 75, just missed out by, I think, 3 points. But it was I felt at that time it wasn't great to watch from the fans' point of view. I felt we could be more on the front foot, maybe trying to win games more than maybe not trying to lose. And from a spectacle point of view, or an entertaining point of view, let's put it that way, I felt we could do more as a team. And it was only when Gordon came along, Gordon Lee, when he opened the floodgates a little bit and said, "Look, this is Everton. We've got to entertain the fans. We've got to be on the front foot." And with his signings like Dave Thomas and Mickey Pejic, then, you know, we were a team that it was good to play in, and it was also good to watch. And we won a lot of football matches as well.
And you've taken the word straight out of my mouth. I was going to ask you a bit about Gordon Lee. But, you know, you named one of your chapters, Good But Not Good Enough. And that sort of pretty much sums up that Everton team of the 70s. Do you think people like Latch and Gordon Lee and yourself and the entire sort of entire sort of decade for the club is pushed aside a bit because of the fantastic form of the mid-80s?
Yeah, I think, of course, in the 80s it was fantastic, wasn't it? As you said, with under Howard winning everything, cup finals and league championships and European trophies. It was magnificent. But we came back. I mean, we finished in the top 4 for the 5 seasons I played at Everton. We finished in the top 4 3 times. We got to the final of the League Cup. We got beat by Aston Villa. We got to semi-final of the FA Cup. You know, that was very controversial, wasn't it? Because it looked like we scored the winner against the old foe across the road. and it was disallowed because of the referee. So it was. We're not making excuses. All we did at the end of the season, we said, right, we've finished in a good position, third or fourth. Can we do it a little bit better, lads? In the dressing room, can we push one further forward and maybe get over the line? But it wasn't for the, the trying it even more. It wasn't to be, but it was almost, but not, as you say, almost, but not quite.
And you as a player, Martin, it's a funny one because you were so good at playing different positions that it's almost quite hard to find out what your best attribute was. And I hate to use the term, but a jack of all trades. Really, it's a bit cliche, but we were talking a bit about Jude Bellingham off camera. How do you think the game has changed that you were able to move between centre half, midfield? You even played up front a little bit in your youth as well when you were at Bolton. How do you think that's changed? Because you don't see that anymore, do you? You don't see a player who can really play 5 or 6 different positions anymore.
I think early on when I was playing, because the squads were smaller squads now, let's put it that way, 16 players. And if you get 3 or 4 injuries, then it depends on the manager and the coach whether you think you're reliable enough to play in a different position. I started, as I said, as a striker. But when I went to Burnley, Jimmy Adamson had a word with me within 18 months. And he said, Martin, I want you to play in a different position. I think you'll enjoy it. Because that's what happened to him as a player. He started off as a striker, went into midfield and played alongside Jimmy McIlroy and was absolutely brilliant. In the 1960s, he won the championship, went to the cup final and all that. So he must have seen something in me. And he said, you're comfortable in possession, but being an ex-striker, you're always going to get in the box and look for goals as well. So it's a goal threat as well. And he was absolutely right. And then we had injury situations to the back four, the 2 centre backs, and he said, Martin, I'm going to play a centre back. He actually said it'll be very comfortable for you. You don't need to worry about it because you can, the ball is always coming onto you. Whereas in midfield positions, it's all over the place, isn't it? It's coming onto you. You can read it well, and you're comfortable in possession. And so the fact that he thought I was good enough, I never had any problems with it. If somebody's going to say to you, you're going to be okay, and convince you that there's not going to be any problem. And during that time, it was funny because I played for the under-23s, England under-23s at centre half, and I'd only been playing at Burnley in the centre-back position for about 3 or 4 games. They must have seen me in a game. I think it was down at Arsenal. I was playing at centre-back then, and I was brought into the under-23 squad. And it's funny, I was asking somebody, I says, well, who's playing centre back? Because I thought it was a midfield player, He said, well, you are, Dobo, you're playing centre back. And this was an under-23 game. I only played the 1 game because the following season I broke my leg and dislocated my ankle. I was eligible to play, but I wasn't able to because of that injury.
And you mentioned there England, of course, and you made some England appearances. You've got a fantastic record on your record that you actually played in Sir Alf Ramsey's final ever England match as manager. And they said to you, and forgive me because this is a question just for me because I was wondering. You mentioned in the book that they didn't let you swap shirts on the pitch. You had to do it in the dressing room. It was burning out a hole in my head. I was wondering, well, I'll forgive you if you can't remember, but did you get a shirt?
No, I think I'm not quite sure to be honest. I got 1 shirt, but I think I gave it away to charity. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, I played 5 times for England, and I played under 3 different managers. And I don't know whether they got rid of me or I got rid of them. It was Alf Ramsey's last game, and we played at Portugal. I mean, before then, you see, England didn't qualify for the World Cup in '74, so he was under extreme pressure, was Alf, to bring other players in. I think 3 or 4 other players made their debut that day, and it wasn't a great game. It was a 0-0 over at Lisbon, but to actually put the shirt on, it was fantastic for me. And then Joe Mercer took over in a caretaker position. But Alfred made the 22-man squad before he left. So Joe took over then. And I didn't get a sniff in the first 3 or 4 games. There were 7 games at the end of the season, 7 England games. Wow. So the home internationals didn't play at all. There was Argentina. And there's a funny situation there because the last 3 games were over in Eastern Europe. The first one was East Germany, right, in Leipzig. And I was sat on a coach. I was a bit grumpy because I hadn't been playing either for the first 4 games that Joe was in charge with. And at that time, Burnley were cruising on the QE2 over to the West Indies because we've had a really good season. And I thought, I'm the captain of Burnley Football Club. I'm coming over to Leipzig. It's dull. It's depressing. It's dark. Joe's not playing me. I'm thinking, I'm going to have a word with him and say, maybe I picked up an injury and then maybe I can fly over to the West Indies to pick up the boat and have a cruise around. But I'm glad I didn't because he played me the next game against East Germany at Leipzig. And it was over the moon. I played alongside Colin Bell and Trevor Brooking, who were brilliant players. So it was easy for me to fit in with them. But Joe was over the moon. He says that's the best performance that we've since he's been in charge. And then we played Bulgaria. Again, we won that game. Again, he was over the moon about it. And the final game, I think Yugoslavia, there's a bit of a problem there with Kevin Keegan, wasn't it, going through the control there and getting beaten up at the airport. So it was, but Joe took it all in his stride. He was a great guy. But it was only a temporary position. And then the start of the following season, it was Don Revie who took over. And just the one game for me against Czechoslovakia. We won the game. It was a European qualified game. And that was it, basically. So, as I say, I'm not quite sure whether I got rid of them or they got rid of me.
I tell you what, Martin, every single time I think you've done it all, you drop another name or something like that, another massive name that you've met or played with or anything. You broke the cash transfer record, didn't you? You were paid £300,000 for. And it never gets spoken about because you mentioned in the book, and it's very useful that you mentioned in the book that it wasn't technically a transfer record because there was a player swap deal as well. I think it might have been, I can't remember if it was Howard Kent. It was Latch, yeah. But, £300,000 wasn't too bad going in them days, was it?
It was, cash record fee. And it came as a shock, to be fair. It was one weekend. We'd only just started the season, played 3 games. There's a lot of speculation about who's going to go next. And the funny thing was, Burnley were building a new stand. And guess how much the stand cost? £300,000. So you can imagine Bob Lord, the chairman, and the directors in the meeting and saying, now then, who's going to go for 300,000? Oh, Dobo, we'll get 300,000 for him. And the funny thing then was, I was told to report to the chairman's office at Turf Moor on a Monday morning, thinking I'm meeting Bob Lord, chairman. And I knocked on the door. This is so funny. I knocked on the door and I go through, and there's Billy Bingan, manager of Everton Football Club. And his sidekick was Chris Hassel, the secretary. And I went in and I saw Billy and I said, oh, sorry, I've got the wrong room, thinking I should be. And I was closing the door and Billy said, Martin, come on in. We'd like to have a chat. So it was such a shock. But I realised then after 5 minutes, it was a done deal. And, it's excitement, it's shock, it's nervous energy. But I knew that whatever Billy was going to say, I was going to sign for him because it was such an opportunity to play for a fantastic football club. So I just said yes to everything. I think he gave me a £5 rise, and that was that never regretted it for 1 minute.
I'll tell you what, I'd take a £5 nowadays as a student. But do you still have a little bit of a smirk on your face when you go to Turf Moor and look at that stand and go, I built that stand, I paid for that?
Well, I do. When I look at it now, it's the smallest one on the ground. That's the thing. It was in its time, 50 years ago. It was magnificent, and now you look at it, Dobo. You should have gone for a bit more, maybe. Now but it's a lovely ground, like Goodison is, and of course we've got to look forward to the new ground at Moor, haven't we, next season, which is going to be really exciting for everybody.
And you know what? That's a good segue to move on to talk about football stadiums, because Turf Moor, it's a beautiful stadium. I mean, it really is. I mean, the colours, the shapes of the stands, everything about it. I think just claret and blue for a football stadium goes so well. Goodison's in its final season, of course. You've had the honour of playing at Goodison. You've also played at the San Siro, a stadium that I visited in the summer, and I think that's just absolutely breathtaking. What's the best stadium in the world, Martin?
Well, the best stadium for me, of course, was Goodison, because of the atmosphere with the fans were coming. You know, we played at Old Trafford, we played everywhere else, but I think Goodison with the noise level and where the fans get behind it, and I saw that. I got to say, Stephen, because it's been difficult over the last couple of seasons, and I do the hospitality now at Everton, and the last game of the season, as you know better than anybody, 2022-23, we had to beat Bournemouth, to stay in the division, and I think it was Leeds and Leicester, wasn't it? Leeds and Leicester.
Yeah.
There was only one on the day, so there's a lot of pressure on it. And that was fascinating for me, because I was at home. I'm suited and booted. I'm at home waiting to go to Goodison. And the last record that came on the radio, I've got to tell you this: Bob Marley, "Don't worry, everything's going to be all right." So I've got to tell you, I thought, well, I'm going to pick up on that. Absolutely. And at the moment, we've got the grandson's black Labrador. It starts dancing around the kitchen table with me. It's a better dancer, mind you. It's got 4 legs. I've only got 2. So I'm doing all that, and my wife comes in, Carol, fantastic. She's looking at us. We always get that. Sometimes we get the message from our better halves, as though, "What are you doing? You're looking an idiot," And I'd got bet, and I said, "Bob, he's an Evertonian. I'm going to go into Goodison today. I'm going to talk to everybody. I'm going to get them on the right foot. Be positive, go out, and then the stadium will be rocking." And then she said, "Off you pop," like this, "Off you pop." So I go down there, and I'm in the Alex Lounge and the Joe for this particular game, and everybody's absolutely worried, aren't they? They're worried. They're worried. And I'm giving the story about Bob, and I'm saying, go out there and you can influence another 100, 200 spectators, or at least we're on the front foot, And coming at half time, they give me a bit of a rocket. They said, "Dobo, you said we're going to win this game." I said, "Just got to be patient, guys. Get out there again." And I'm thinking, if we're 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go, I'm off. I'm not stopping there for another hour. No danger. But Decore scores a great goal, as we know. And Jordan makes 1 or 2 absolutely brilliant reflex saves, and we get over the line. It's fantastic. And the atmosphere then, we felt, that the flares came on, the lads were, the fans were on the pitch, everybody was just, and I saw Reedy after the game, Peter Reid. I've got to say, we both had a tear in our eyes, because we knew we would not have got over the line and won that game without the fans. And we just hugged each other and said, "Brilliant. It's something really special here at Goodison."
What a fantastic! Well, you mentioned as well, back in time a little bit. Bill Shankly came and used to visit Everton training ground Belfield a couple of times. He used to live above it. It's a story that the Red side like a lot, that he used to draw the curtains whenever they were playing. But it's a bit of a strange rivalry between the Blues and the Reds, isn't it? Because I know for a fact that it used to be called the Friendly Derby. It's maybe not known quite as that now, but there's a special sort of weird relationship between Blues and Reds. What do you make of it? Of course, having played for the club.
Well, when I came at the beginning, obviously the rivalry, I didn't realise it was so intense. I mean, I made a mistake at the beginning. When I came to my first game, we played Arsenal at home. And what did I have on?
You didn't wear red.
I had a red tie on. And the guy on the door, he looked at me in shock. I'm thinking, oh, what's wrong? What, something wrong with my hair or my suit? Is, you know, I got a blue suit on. He said, Martin, take that off straight away. So he gave me his tie, his Everton tie. It was fantastic. So I could go in the dressing room. So I didn't make that mistake again. But the rivalry, yeah, I always felt that very intense. But at that time, you know, there were blues and reds in the same car coming to the game. You know, there's the blue on one side and red on the other, and family members were both Liverpoolians and Evertonians, and the atmosphere. It's got a bit more intense in nowadays, which saddens me a bit because it is a sport. Everybody wants to win. I remember the derby when we beat Everton. Sorry, when Everton beat Liverpool 1-0. You know, and I remember that because unfortunately Lyonsy was injured or suspended for that game, and I was a captain. And just coming out onto the stadium because both teams had to come out together. Kenny Dalglish was a similar situation because I think Phil Thompson was injured or suspended. So we came out together. And can you imagine in the passageway beforehand coming out with your rivals? It's not easy, is it? And you're squashed up together. But then you come onto the pitch at Goodison and wow, it just takes you away, the noise level, and there's a spring in your step. And you realise I was captain that day. I'm thinking there's more responsibility. We've got to do it today for the fans. And it was a terrific day. Of course, Kingy scores in the top corner. I spoke to him after the game in the dressing room and I said, hey, Andy, did you shin that or what? He says, oh, sweet as a nut, mate. Sweet as a nut. What a great guy Andy was. And of course, he was taken from us too early, wasn't
he? Yeah. Last question I want to ask. Sorry, microphone. Last question I want to ask you is, do you still have those England caps? Because you can't buy them in sports shops.
England caps. I think I've got one somewhere. I'll tell you what I have got, which I always rely on. You know, when I'm playing a five-a-side now, I've got one there, and this is the midfield that we put together. Right, so I've got two good midfield generals, or a bit of, you know, there we are. So two midfield, and there's lots of balls in there. Yeah, right. So if they are knocked out of the stadium, we've always got another one.
Yeah,
but I think these guys, they look after me. Let's put it that way. They're always giving me, oh, yeah, I know, I've gone on too long. I know, I realise that now. And it says, oh, can you shut up a bit? Yeah, fine enough. But listen, there they are. Unbelievable. What a great club.
Yeah, fantastic club. Of course, you can go and buy Martin Dobson's new book, Dobo for Club and Country. As I said at the beginning of the video, it's a fantastic read. Make sure that you go and buy it now. Martin, thank you so much for coming on. I wish I could speak to you all day, but I've got no more questions left.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. It's been terrific. And we're all Evertonians, aren't we? So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But good luck to the boys, and I'm sure they give 100%. And fantastic football club.
I really hope so. Of course, make sure you get your comments down below, like and subscribe to the Toffee Blues. Make sure you, and also after you've turned this one off, go and watch a Martin Dobson compilation because it's an absolute joy. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.